Going beyond the headlines. Asking the questions you want answered. Exploring government policies and how they impact you. We are delving deeper.
On the surface, it's easy to paint a picture of doom and gloom, with a record-breaking murder count, increased cost of living, collapsed roads, communities and villages rebuilding following severe floods. But as we delve deeper, we can find government policies designed to guide decision-making and enhance the lives of citizens, with initiatives aimed at directly addressing and countering the local impact of these global challenges. Good evening. It's January 1st, 2023. Happy New Year to you and your family. Welcome to Delving Deeper. I'm your host, Kimberly D'Souza. In this, our first episode for 2023, we share with you highlights from our series thus far. When this show started 8 months ago, government was slowly taking steps to ease COVID-19 restrictions. The manufacturing sector was addressing shipping challenges and high freight costs linked to the war between Russia and Ukraine.
At the end of the day, we are all affected by prices, and that's the end result of it. And we've come through a COVID period where you've had a number of disruptions, supply chain disruptions across the globe. And then with the impasse, the Russia-Ukraine impasse, that has just continued. There's also the freight price increases, which has been substantial. So freight prices have gone up multiple times. And in particular, when you look at the inputs into manufacturing, the concern is for the products that are produced in the region, like in the Ukraine region and that Eastern European area. The concern is for the inputs like wheat and corn. Ukraine produces about 30% of the world's exports of corn. And you could understand that affects our value chain, our flour value chain. Those are the products that go into, the wheat into flour, into our animal feed. So the price of flour, the price of animal feed, the price of poultry feed have all gone up. And when you look at the forecast, it's not very encouraging. Government has responded very well in terms of removing VAT from a number of products, also removing the common external tariff on the basic food items. We've done that. We've provided the foreign exchange to the importers and also to manufacturers for their inputs into manufacturing to ensure that they can get the basic foods in and their basic inputs into the manufacturing products. So the ministry has provided close to $1 billion US in foreign exchange to ensure that we can do what we can do to get those products on our shelves at a reasonable cost, so that we have been intervening.
In-person classes resumed for Standard 5 pupils and Forms 4, 5, and 6 students. With it came challenges, including the issue of school violence.
Post-COVID, because the technology has become so much a part of what's happening at the school, students have their phones, and I don't know that there's any school at this point that restricts the use of phones. And so the phones are very available. Students have sophisticated phones as well. They can tape, and so we are seeing the fights playing out more. So there's not necessarily an increase in violence, but there's certainly an increase in the awareness of the violence and the spread and the impact. And what is also happening is that some students feel they feel like movie stars when they see themselves in these videos. And so they go so far as to plan the violence. They're going to plan the fight, and they're going to plan, how they're going to react and what they're going to do, so that when they see it played back to them, they feel as though, they just, they did what they're supposed to do. So that is a new aspect, and that is a dangerous thing, because it makes them feel good. And I know feeling good about something that is not good is a problem.
The Ministry of Health lifted the mask mandate in July and again appealed to citizens to get vaccinated. All this was happening while the world was just learning of the monkeypox virus.
Earlier I said in the bad old days we were clocking over 700 cases a day. we are down to 121 as a rolling 7-day average, which is reasonable. We have seen no uptick in recent days or weeks that could be attributed to any mass event. So what that probably means is that we have a population that is 51% vaccinated, about 180,000 persons boosted. And then to that, you have to add another few 100,000 persons who have been immunized or through to infection. So we are in a reasonable place now to allow people to do things as normally as possible. Again, the numbers don't lie, but I am concerned about people taking risks that they should not be taken in the public domain. My advice is that we should wear masks based on your own personal risk assessment, especially if you are immunocompromised. If you're a young person, but then when you go home, you have people at home who are not vaccinated. You have the elderly that you could pass on the virus to. So we have been consistent over the past 8 or 9 months since we started vaccinating to ask the individual to take some personal responsibility now instead of relying on the state to take action on your behalf.
With the local COVID-19 landscape changing and the full reopening of the public sector, government's vaccination policy was shelved.
We completed a policy and it was presented to Cabinet, but at the time it needed to get the input of the Ministry of Health and other ministries. But the government took the decision at the time not to implement because we were actually coming out of the pandemic and therefore mandatory vaccination was not seen as the of great benefit at that time. Also, you had the issues of people really fighting against any mandatory vaccination. So there was a political element concerned as well. So it really did not go anywhere, but the document is there and can be used in the future if we need to look at other infectious diseases where we may require mandatory vaccination. A lot of the groundwork has already been completed.
And with the OSH report into the Paria diving tragedy nearing completion, a commission of inquiry was being initiated.
We have a former Attorney General, Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maraj, Senior Counsel, who's going to be commissioned counsel to the commission. And they are the persons who are now in charge of this. They have come out, they've been appointed, they've told the population the work that they're going to do, and they intend to start their hearings in August. There's nothing left for the government to do. So this is no longer a government conversation. We are going to participate willingly and do all that we can to make sure that the Commission of Inquiry is a success, because I think the population, and in particular the families, need to know what went wrong and what caused that tragic accident. Don't let the politicians, once again, and in particular the opposition, lead us, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, down the wrong road. Commission of Inquiry has been established. The government has nothing more to do with it. No one is dragging their feet. We also always knew, that one of the difficulties of a Commission of Inquiry is they take time, and there is going to be a much longer time frame. That's what was wanted. It's been established. Let's await the outcome.
The Commission of Inquiry continues this month. Life in TNT is slowly returning to a pre-pandemic normal. Public gatherings, the hosting of Carnival in Tobago, and sporting events. Cricket fans packed the Queen's Park Oval and Brian Lara Stadium for the CPL tournament, and talks are underway between the Ministry of Sport and Community Development and the CPL executive team to have TNT host some of the matches in the group stage at this year's event. Meanwhile, for two of our elite athletes, 2022 was a successful year. Sprinter Jareem Richards at the Commonwealth Games.
Jareem Richards driving for the line, storming to victory. It's gold to the Trinidadian.
And Dylan Carter for his 9 gold medals at the FINA World Cup.
950s, you won at the World Cup. That's crazy. Like, were you expecting that coming in?
It was a goal, but I can't say I was expecting it. But I mean, I had a really good meet run, so I'm really, really proud of that.
Minister of Sport and Community Development, the Honourable Shamfa Kajo, said Athletes have until the end of March to apply for funding under the Elite Athletes Assistance Program. As we're on the topic of funding, the minister said the increase in the budgetary allocation for fiscal 2023 will help, especially for new and upcoming projects.
Empower TT focuses on developing boys and men, spending that time, providing that platform for them to share their experiences, for them to learn from other experienced men, for mentorship. We have over 100 professional men from throughout Trinidad and Tobago who are volunteering right now to hold the hands and to guide these youngsters. And when we got to the level of doing the life skills training, we had 260 youngsters on board being trained, introducing them to the world of work, finding out what are they interested in and offering them introductory level training and certification through MIC and other entities throughout the arms of government to help them to redirect their energies, to refocus, to pivot, and to set up themselves in such a way to contribute positively to their personal development, to the development of their families, to rebuilding their communities, and making a meaningful contribution to the social and economic development of Trinidad and Tobago. So it's not only about building centers, it's about building people also.
The absence of a father in the home is one of the many reasons young men join gangs.
You know, when our family services division go into, I spoke about the fact that they do counseling to families and so on. And when they go into communities, we recognize that some of the problems that, we see stem from a social issue. There are social issues. For example, there are some persons like in the families where gang leaders groom the children, and it is because of the absence of a father, or it may be because of the absence of parents in the home. So what we are doing, we have started having parenting workshops. So these parenting workshops, now some of the topics we cover is like co-parenting, because sometimes there's violence in the home, and it is because of issues, with parents against each other, and this affects children, and children react differently to circumstances. And we do co-parenting. Many of us would have grown up with our grandparents, so we have had some grandparenting workshops and webinars. We have been going into the community now to conduct these parenting workshops and grandparenting workshop. And we continue to have psychosocial support to them. So our family services division counsels persons, counsel families, counsel parents, and this continues and it helps. And even our suicide prevention hotline is also one of the areas that is a preventative measure against crime, because sometimes it's not just I commit suicide. I sometimes intend to kill someone first before I do it.
There are programs across several ministries aimed at aiding at-risk youth.
The baseline of the program is discipline, and what we try to do is to readjust, press the reset button for many of our young people who need a safety net. Those persons who need support in terms of their own social circumstances. They may not have the resources to make it through in terms of their personal development, in terms of their educational development. So we have front-loaded our training with life skills. Those military members are all trained mentors. So they work 24 hours of the day, 7 days a week in support of those young persons in our various programs. And each program has its individual output in terms of whether it's CSEC certification coming from MyLAT, whether it's technical vocation certification from MyPAT, or from TechVoc, as well as life skills training from the Civilian Conservation Corps program.
Very often, the boys that are brought to us have been somewhat discarded by, we can say, by their families. They're just brought to the attention of the state. And otherwise, they're in terms of they're treating with, we have to treat with those boys who have come into conflict with the law as well. We have two very good parts of our organization, our emergency response team, as well as the child justice unit. And they, with the TTPS and other agencies would treat with and ensure that we are that we know exactly what the problems or the challenges are for those children. They are then, from the authority, we look towards either finding out what is wrong, hearing their voices, and attempting through referrals to find the best space for them. We are of the view that reintegration into families should be the best option, and definitely not institutionalization. But there are cases where we have to ensure that these boys are taken care of. And that brings me to the point of saying that we have to make sure that we do well by them and to make sure that we treat with our institutions, and that's when monitoring of these homes, community homes, that's part of our job.
To effect change, legislation must be drafted and brought to Parliament. At times, passage of these pieces of legislation requires support from the opposition.
I want to engage persons who would like to engage with me by the spoken word, by correspondence, so that we can communicate about me getting the job done and doing it better. And if I've made a mistake, point out to me that I've made a mistake, help me to understand how I could get it done better. Let's move on.
And if one of those people is a member of the opposition, you're willing to...
Oh, I welcome that. I welcome that, because at the end of the day, we have a duty to the public to get it right. And it's a duty to the public to serve the public, to help people to live in an environment, a national environment, in their homes and in their communities in which they are comfortable. They can walk the streets. You can not be worried about your daughter out late at night and if she's going to get home safely. The job of the government is to provide a warm, safe, secure environment in which all of us as citizens can feel that we live in a place we prefer to come home to than to run away from.
That cooperation across the political divide is what is key when it comes to delivering services at the local government level.
Upon coming into the ministry, it was obvious that the rainy season was soon upon us and that the hurricane season would be soon upon us. In those circumstances, knowing we wanted data for local government reform, knowing that we wanted to bring relief to citizens, we immediately set about. Every single day we've been at work. Literally, we have not had a day off since March 16th. It has been all engines firing at the same time. 10 corporations in. Total number of truckloads, 2,709. Number of meters cube collected, close to 17,000 meters cubed. Let's put that visually. If you took 20-foot containers of what we collected and we managed, and you put them and you stack them up, there'll be 501 20-foot containers. That's 14 times the height of the Twin Towers. And that's only 10 corporations. In the storm management, which we're in right now, in active zone, obviously it made a difference to know that 14 times the height of the Twin Towers are not in our streets and drains and hills, and that we have checked the working assets in each of the corporations, all 10 of them so far. So this is critical, yes, for short-term, medium-term, long-term planning for local government, but yes, for eventualities such as this.
As the ODPM explains, we are seeing unprecedented rainfall in TNT.
October, for the third time in recent memory, we've had extensive rainfall. The average rainfall between, let's say, over the last 30 years, well, let's say from 1980-81 to 2010 or thereabout, was about 180-something millimeters. This month alone, and the month hasn't finished as yet.
It hasn't.
We are right now 300 plus in Trinidad and over 400 in Tobago. So it tells you something is happening. Earlier on I said we had heavy rainfall in March, the height of the dry season. So there is something that is happening. I use the word something because, you know, this division whether it's climate change or not.
Oh, yeah.
So I am saying there's something. I call it climate change.
Yes.
The climate is changing. And as a result of it,
We have to, as a society, recognize we cannot continue to do business as usual.
Unfortunately, when it floods, operations at several of WASA's water treatment plants are halted. The authority is looking at ways to address this as the transformation of WASA continues.
No secret that WASA is a bad word. One of our jobs is to change that outlook. We have started doing that, as I've indicated, over the last year and a half. We are there as a board. We have been making strides, small strides, I would say. There's still a lot to be done, and we are very excited with the transformation process. Once, as Minister said, we get the correct team at the head, the effects of that will trickle down. Coming from the private sector to chair the Board of Commissioners, I would say it was painful to see what was going on. And we are very much committed to changing the outlook at the authority and allowing the citizens to get a very efficient supply of water. What I would say at this point in time is that WASA did not get to that state overnight, so that it will take some time, and funding permitting, it will take some time to get to that level of improvement where you would have a minimum amount of complaints. But with the transformation having started, we are very excited at the prospect of a new authority.
We will be hearing more about this in 2023. As we start this new year, here's what we can expect from several ministries and state agencies.
As Chief Legal Advisor to the government, that is to say the Attorney General, and the leading the charge on the legislative agenda, parliamentary agenda, we will want to build out on the government's policy and agenda. I had one of my meetings with the Legislative Review Committee, which involved the members of the Chief Parliamentary Council, the members of the Law Reform Commission, and teams within the legal departments of the Attorney General's office to review the entire suite of legislation that we are looking to bring to the Parliament in the new term. And there is a significant amount, in addition to some that carries over from the last Parliament. So a couple that carry over from the last Parliament would be the Private Security Bill, the Supplemental Police Act. Those are two that we definitely are bringing across. In the area of white-collar crime, we are looking to do some further work in what is called mutual legal assistance treaties, because we need to collaborate with international agencies and governments in following the money. There is a lot of corruption that has taken place over the years in this country. And out of that corruption, people have banked their money, illicitly gained money abroad. We have to have good, tough legislation to allow our law enforcement of Trinidad and Tobago work within legitimate legal means with other governments and other law enforcement agencies to get the collaboration to follow the money. We're working on that. Whistleblower protection. We need to be able to get information into the police and give protection to persons who bring that information in. We need to give attention to and priority to allow for anonymous evidence coming in that the police can act on and bring it by way of evidential amendments before the courts so that it is legally admissible evidence. We need to bring legislation that will allow judges to draw legitimate legal inferences from, for instance, the silence of somebody. If a number of things are known to you and the evidence is given by the prosecution and you choose to remain silent, are there inferences that the judge will be permitted to draw from the fact that you've remained silent? All of that are part and parcel of a large suite of a legislative package that we are working on currently. A couple recent ones that we have been paying attention to. everybody would know about the recent efforts in relation to the scrap metal. Another area that we are looking at that I think is long overdue, sexual harassment in the workplace. You go to work and you are made subject to comments, remarks, and treatment that exploits your sexuality, exploits who you are. And you feel powerless because there is a power dynamic between the employer and the employee that has young people feeling helpless. They come home crying, they resign their jobs. There is little or no redress because the power dynamic is so strong. So we're building out legislation on that literally as I speak. If you were to ask me the question, what am I excited about in this new dimension that I'm operating in? I derive a great amount of meaning and satisfaction from being able to participate in bringing legislation that is going to address the needs of the citizens of this country in terms that can become part of our body of law, to give people of this country a sense of the fact that the country is working for them.
Even before we got the report from Justice Jones and her team, we would have been working towards improving the quantum and the quality of homes for children. So recently, Cabinet would have allocated a facility for the use of the Children's Authority for their reception center. So we're going to be an amalgamation of various centers coming together into one to provide that care and protection for those children. But outside of that, we recognize that we have over 500 children who are in these facilities. And we have to find places of safety for them. And I want you to understand and appreciate the fact that I don't think the Children's Authority would know of an instance of a child being abused in a home and leave that child in that home. That is something I want to stress. Despite the shortcomings, we have always endeavored to work in the best interest of the child. That is the philosophy that guides the Children's Authority. That is the philosophy that guides us at Gender and Child Affairs. And it's based on the Convention on the Rights of the Child. We have been promoting the rights of the child in Trinidad and Tobago. We recently would have established and are currently implementing a national child policy. And in the background, beyond the work of the committee, we would have recognized certain shortcomings and we were working towards improving the system. So in terms of child protection, there's a team working on a national child protection strategy that has been going on even before the report came into being. And in terms of the homes again, yes, we have homes that are unlicensed. As I would have mentioned before, the majority of those homes are 75% on the road towards being licensed by the Children's Authority. What we can ensure is that in the interim, we ensure that proper measures are put in place to monitor these homes and to ensure that while those children are there, even though the homes aren't licensed, that their best interest would be the principle that guides all that operate in the home.
Trinidad and Tobago brings certain strengths into this system. The strength of our processing and manufacturing sector is famous across the region. We are bringing those strengths into the system. There are also some products such as chicken and corn and pineapples and a number of other agricultural products that we have tradition and strength in as well. So Trinidad and Tobago is a leading part of the elaboration of this system, and we are working very closely with our other members of CARICOM to ensure that that 25 by 2025 is achieved and we are able to conserve more of our foreign exchange within the region. We're able to support the regional farming community to a far greater extent than we have in the past, and that our people would be able to obtain nutritious and healthy food at a lower cost. That's a very important objective.
This ministry is
position now to look at our youth development, as I said before, in a holistic manner, so that we create all the opportunities that will cause our young persons to come out in a more developed and prepared way for the workforce, but also for those who wish to get involved in business, that we create the opportunities of training for them in entrepreneurship, as well as funding and all the technical assistance to cause them to be more job creators as opposed to job seekers. We continue to say that because we want our young people to know that they can take the opportunity, they can take the risk and get involved in business. That's why we've been pushing the agricultural program. That is why we will soon introduce the youth business hubs. And that is why we strengthen NetGo to continue the incubator program for the businesses that will come and spring up from the work that we are doing. We will soon as well take legislation to Parliament to introduce the National Youth Development Agency of Trinidad and Tobago. And that agency will be charged with the management of all the facilities and the programs that you've heard mentioned here today, save and except the ones that will fall under the ambit of the Defence Force Corporation program.
One of the major roles we're playing in terms is training and development. So most of the, for example, the Homestead program, and the other agricultural programs, NEDCO will be providing significant training and entrepreneurial training to those participants. So that's one major role. We work closely with our line ministry in terms of developing entrepreneurs who go into them for that support.
Yes.
I think if you have a dream, still live it out. Don't wait until you're 90 or 85 to just catch, I want to do baking and I think I want to start baking. And, I always had this dream. People always say that. I always had this dream. Get up and live out your dream. Understand it's going to be a challenge. Yeah. Yes. But, people live out the challenges. If you look at all the successful entrepreneurs throughout the world, all over the world, they talk about the challenges. The millions and billions they make wasn't just like that. It was based on a struggle and getting over those hurdles, So what I will say, I will want to encourage entrepreneurs, young or old, to get in and build your dream. Yeah? Get in and build your dream. And NEDCO is here to support.
Digitization has been going on for eons. You see it every day. It's the taking of something and making a digital version of it. You do that a lot. Take pictures, you transform them into things. It's quite simple to do. You do it without thinking about it. The digitalization part of it is when you start to interfere with processes, when you start taking those digitized artifacts and using them and applying digital processes to them to make them be more. So an example of that would be the fact that you could apply for something entirely online and receive the service. Yeah. That's a result of a digitized part and a digitalized part all coming together.
The Printry is working towards embracing, as I said before, digitization. So what their interface will be for the public is no longer only going to be, well, you have to come in and pay $3 for this form and $5 for that form. But you will be able to utilize a commercial website that they're in the final stages of finishing, where you can pay online for a form that you will require and be able to get that form any format that you needed to be able to print to meet all the requirements, all the legal requirements that they would be for that form.
We are moving full speed ahead with regards to our digitalization efforts. We recognize that it is important that we do that, even because of the fraud and corruption investigations that are taking place within the ministry at this time. We recognize that we have to move from manual to digital. That's one. We're also reviewing we're doing some data migration because we are also cleaning the data, because we have also found that there have been some mistakes on the system with regards to person's ID card number. Simple. But if one digit is wrong, there's a problem. So we are actually doing that. Now persons will be able to apply online. All right, so that you will not have to come into the office, and you can do that at any time. We also our clients will be able to benefit from improved service, faster information getting back to them. For example, we'll have a notification process because there has been some complaints about persons not being able to know what is happening and what is the status. So you will be able to get your automatic notification as to the status of your application. We want to have it too as a one-stop shop. So you would, instead of having to come into one department because I want something from social welfare, go into another department for family service, go into another department for something, it will now be a one-stop shop. So it would all be to improve the service to our clients.
The transformation is when it starts to impact you in ways that you see every day. An example of that would be changing the way in which the education system works in terms of the delivery of curriculum to students. So you have a blended learning environment where now the technology is an integrated part of what you do. So you need laptops to do it, you need broadband to do it, the instructors need to know a new way to do it. But effectively, it becomes effective when used appropriately.
What we looked at over COVID, when we had to consider when we were having exams and how we were having exams, there are territories in the region that already do e-testing, and it was a lot easier for them, that resilience built into the system because you didn't have to be physically dealing with all of that arrangement. So e-testing is one of the major things we want to head to, and in January of 2023, we are going to expand our e-testing portfolio. It's going to be on a voluntary basis to integrate more e-testing into the ministry's program. We do have some subjects already that are done that way, but it's a few, and we want to expand that. So that's on the e-testing side. A part of that, of course, is the bring your own device scenario where students can use their own devices to be able to do e-testing. And that feeds right into our laptop and device distribution. Two of our most impactful projects will be the IRIS project as well as the SMS. So the IRIS project deals with human resource management, and that's for our entire ministry, but we are focusing now on the teachers. And we are getting them basically digitizing the teacher records. If you've ever seen a teacher file, and you've been a teacher, so you understand the very huge stack of paper where things can easily go missing. Oh, yes. And that has a lot of repercussions for salaries, for benefits at the end of your tenure, which is so unfortunate. So we are digitizing that. Another thing is the digitization in a similar manner of student records.
I really want to encourage people, come to the library, join the library. It's a minimal cost, and you can get your library card in no time. And
I have mine.
Free of charge?
No, it's not.
Oh, how much?
It's not. It will not cost you more than $1 or more than $5.
Right.
So I don't want to give you the exact cost. That and a utility bill, and you can join the library. But you're going to get a lot more virtual libraries. We have as we move into the communities, because the community libraries, the co-located libraries, are about bringing the library in Toko will be different from the library in Diego Martin.
Yes.
In terms of its content, in terms of its look and feel. And that's what we want to do, to ensure that when people go to our library, it's a unique experience in terms of digitization, that you can stay wherever you are now and access, the entire collection. We have EBSCO hosts, we have different search engines, and you can access the entire collections of the National Library. We want people to come to the library, but we also know that in this day and age, people are going to stay from where they are and be able to access the library. If we don't know, we can't blame the young people now because they don't know the history. We have not passed it on.
Of course.
And NALIS is at the forefront of ensuring that that information is passed on. And we will do all that we can do with the resources that we have available to us to ensure that in 60 years' time, we'll be doing a lot more than we're doing.
I think the main lesson learned is that the world is now digital, so we can no longer postpone or delay the full implementation of digitalization, and it's something we have to press ahead on. I think what the individuals, a lot of them did learn, and some of them may still have to learn, is that they could no longer fight this change. It is there, and it has to be embraced, or people will be left behind, and we can't afford that. I am hoping to leave the ministry stronger than it is. One of the deficits that I realized when I got there was the absence of a project team. project implementation, project management, project planning. That was not readily available at the ministry. So I introduced a temporary team while I formalize what I want to go to cabinet for approval. And that brought to my attention the fact that a deficit exists in that area in most of the ministries, departments, and agencies. So I'm looking across the public service to see how we can improve project implementation. If you listen to the budget debate, for example, every year there's a report by ministries about what percentage of their capital allocation is not spent because they were not able to implement and complete their projects. So that is one of the things I definitely want to address to make implementation of projects and assignments easier.
Electricity conservation. We can each take a decision, turn off the electricity when you're not using it. That helps with the global atmosphere, the global environment, the climate, and these types of things. So small things like that. We are also looking at, I'm working with the Minister of Public Utilities on the possibility of waste. So taking the waste on our dumps, converting that into electricity, combining it with other things. So the government is very active in getting us onto the renewable side, because of course that helps us. The more gas we save, if we go more renewable, we can then monetize that gas for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we are doing our part in the global scheme. I'm looking at things like something called decarbonization off of all of the gas products in Trinidad, meaning the ammonia, the methanol, the other petchems, UAN, urea, and on the oil side, because capturing carbon, storing it and utilizing it for increased production, but basically taking that carbon dioxide, which is a harmful gas emission, and doing positive things with us and reducing our side. We're also on the, and this is a bit technical, but you'll forgive me, this is also on the methane side, which is one of the harmful gases that is affecting our global environment. We are actively through NGC and Heritage looking at reducing the methane out there in our atmosphere, finding if there are leaks, etc., and also seeing if we can monetize the methane. So your government is very, very active in the areas. It's not only about renewables, but we're also looking at reduction of carbon, decarbonization, reduction of carbon dioxide, as well as capturing of methane leaks.
At this point in time, there are approximately 51% of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago now enjoy a 24/7 water supply. 2 years ago, when I came into the ministry, it was 34%. And because of some of the interventions and some of the programs that we have put together, like CWIP, managing our leaks, managing our network, deploying technologies, as the case may be, what we have seen so far is an upward movement in the levels of service, 24/7 levels of service, from 34% 2 years ago to 51%. And we're looking forward to ramp up some of these activities over the coming months, where approximately by the end of the fiscal next year, approximately 65 or 70% of the country can now enjoy a 24/7 access to water.
Okay.
The board was part of this process, and therefore when the cabinet approved the policy for the transformation of WASA, the board knew exactly what its mandate is with respect to this transformation. In September, because we've completed all of this work, in September, after the budget is read, we are now looking to implement these programs across Trinidad and Tobago. And the first objective is to eradicate water supply that is below 24/2 and below. So if any community that has a water schedule of 24/2 and below, that plan is designed to respond to some of these challenges and bring every community to at least a minimum of 24/3 water supply. So that's in the first phase. And those are the communities that we will be targeting in the new fiscal year. So we are talking to CAF, we are talking to the IDB. We expect to have access to an emergency funding of $45 million. And we're looking to start implementing these projects all across Trinidad and Tobago, putting down modular water treatment plants in the Sangre Grande area, in the central area, in the Penal area, in the south area, in Tobago, in the River Estate areas, increasing and improving water supply, putting down some of our detailed loggers all across the region so that we can get real-time information
on what is taking place on your network, whether you have a disruption, you will be notified instantly by some of these technologies that we are putting down. We are going to rehabilitate the Caroni water treatment plant, the North Oropus water treatment plant, the Penal water treatment plant, the Freeport water treatment plant, in Cap de Ville, Granville, in Tobago, Corland. All of these things now form part of our regional plans. Getting those plants up to their design capacity to produce water, but making sure that your network is redesigned in such a way that it can get the water into the homes of every single citizen.
Annually, if everyone pays their rent, we can receive 125 million a year. Our PSIP, we've recently just concluded an audit on all our estates, and our PSIP projections amounts to 250 million. So if we can collect, in 2 years' time, we would have completed all the repairs. With a delinquency of around 41%, it makes it very difficult to effect repairs. So what we have to do is to prioritize what is very important and urgent. So certainly the roof repair program is the most important. Second to that would be our tank farm, our water tank systems, because we know people need water in order to continue on with their daily chores and their duties. And then finally, we would look at other areas. We have a lot of sewer issues, and perhaps maybe things like cupboards, kitchen cupboards, and those things we would do next. Also, we have included in that road repairs for some of our estates.
The LSA has taken its responsibility serious, and we continue to develop squatting sites. We continue to provide security of tenure for squatters in accordance with the law. Since 2017 to now, we have started almost 600 houses. And these are starter homes for persons who are the most deserving in our society. It's a program, it's one where we construct starter homes of size 20 by 24, 480 square feet. And it's for citizens whose income is less than $7,000, household income less than $7,000 a month, who are living in deplorable conditions. We're constructing homes all over the country as we speak. Apart from the HVIP, which is Housing and Village Improvement Program, we have the government-aided self-help housing program, where we're providing fully developed residential lots to citizens who wish to build on their own. Qualifying income, $25,000 and less household income per month. You apply, and there's an application process. And for those persons who qualify, you get a fully developed residential lot at 30% of the open market value. So these lots are sold basically at around 80,000 to 150,000, depending on the open market value of these lots. Persons who qualify under this program then is sent to a financial institution of their choice, be it the TTMF or bank of their choice, where they qualify to pay for the lot of land and qualify to construct a home as well. So apart from providing the land, fully developed lots, the LSA also has a responsibility for providing technical support to those persons who qualify on the program. We provide fully developed housing plans at no cost to these individuals, so you can choose one of our plans. In fact, at this time, we have approximately 8 plans that are available. So these individuals can choose these plans and build their own homes according to their own likeness.
And as you see now in this budget, we're going to expand on this program. So more and more persons are going to get assistance in their existing home, improving it. And this is important because some persons who ask and seek for housing, sometimes all they really need is an upgrade of where they are existing. So programs like the Home Improvement Grant, even the HVIP, as Mr. Hussein would have expressed, these are different programs that would provide housing and shelter for persons, and they don't necessarily have to go through the process of the HCC.
TTT's bottom line as state media is different to the bottom line of any of its quote-unquote competitors or any of the other people that are in that landscape. We have a responsibility that goes way beyond whether we make a profit or not. Now, that is not to say that in any organization you want to ensure that your operations are efficient as possible, that you minimize your costs. We want to ensure that wherever avenues are for us to maximize our revenue, we do that. But here's my answer to that. My answer is, as we create content that is inherently Trinbagonian, so the revenue will come, because people are going to want to come to it. But my position is that you lead with quality, you lead with your qualitative bottom line, to ensure that we are informing not just this generation, but informing future generations. The things, the importance of state media is not always in whether it has turned a dollar or not. It is, how are we creating more informed, more patriotic population 20 years from now that sees themselves as inherently Trinbagonian, a population that identifies with this country and wants to amplify that Trinbagonianness in everything that they do. And I think that in creating content that allows a 6-year-old to start identifying as a Trinidadian, as a Tobagonian, as a Trinbagonian, is where you start that conversation and where you start that process.
We are in the process of developing a strategic plan that will take us from 2022 to 2027. As part of that strategic plan, we are going to be focusing heavily on human resources and how we align the human resources to the needs of the organization. How we're going to invest heavily as well in terms of training the organization, reconfiguring the organization in such a way that we are able to manage our freelancers and our stakeholders in ways that might be different from the way that they are managed now. So I would say you would see a different organization, totally digitalized. Digital transformation is going to be at the forefront of everything we do at TTT. And therefore, in the future, the organization is going to have a different look and feel. We've already started, but 5 years from now, we are going to be a different organization. And if I may say,
I'm listening.
If I may say, I think we are going to be a sustainable organization as well, because the different types of activities and plans that we have for the organization could change our income stream.
Communication is not what you say, but what is received. This budget came at a very critical time because people are hurting and the feelings are raw and it's up at the top. So it doesn't behoove me and it doesn't benefit to say that there are things there without us getting the communication out there and understanding, letting the people understand that we genuinely care and that there are genuine things in that budget that persons can benefit from. And I want to just say, I will just give 2 examples. The increase in the non-taxation of persons who earn $7,500 a month, who do not pay taxes now because of this measure in the budget, is something that persons now can benefit from. $500 more can assist in going to the grocery and coping with the rising prices that have people now uneasy and have people hurting and they're saying pressure. So that is one aspect that I would want to say that is a positive aspect in the budget. And it can work particularly in households, in single earning households. It will go not a long way, but it will go a way in alleviating that sort of pressure that the country is feeling and the country is expressing. I want also to say that as it relates to the area of education, that there's now an emphasis not just on education, but on education and training. It means that there'll be opportunities for the young persons. Listen, I have seen the over the last 3 to 4 days, I've seen the creativity of our young persons with memes and TikTok. Our young persons in Trinidad and Tobago will now have an opportunity to train because of the amount of money that has been invested in education and training. I want us to grasp that opportunity, particularly now that businesses are being given an incentive to employ young people and they get a benefit back from the government.
We have developments such as the brand new Sangre Grande Hospital that we would see in 2023, 106 bed that would benefit some 110,000 persons. And I must boast of the amount of praises we do get at the Sangre Grande Eastern Regional Health Authority for their healthcare services given to all citizens. A lot of persons from outside our area, our constituency, do come to the Sangre Grande Hospital and get healthcare services. We would have recently have our enhanced facility, Sangre Grande enhanced facility, which is doing tremendous work for the people. That would have been one of the centers that pulled us out during the COVID period. We would have benefited from our Sangre Grande licensing office. Now our people from Toko and Matla does not have to leave 3 o'clock in the morning to head to Arima or Port of Spain. We have our own licensing office, and I must say thanks to the Minister of Works and Transport and the Ministry of Works for seeing it fit to give us that licensing office in Sangre Grande. And then we could go on to the Toko to Valencia road upgrade and highway, which will eventually lead us to the port that is in the future plans for the Toko area, which is a big one for the people of the Toko region.
And even though I know that the major thing in this budget is the gas increase and everything is increasing here and there, what I want us to focus on are the things that also increased. And as a representative, I would have had the opportunity to meet a lot of parents, some single parents. And I remember this one parent. She came to me and her son, he wanted to be a doctor. Yeah, right, brilliant young man. He was on Reservoir Hill. And I will never forget that young man. He wanted to be a doctor. And I remember when I was that age, I had a dream as well. And I said, well, you're bright, you're young, you had the grades, you're accepted. So what's the problem? Use GATE. But he had already used GATE for 6th form UE. So he was ineligible to utilize GATE now to go to medical school. That was costing single parent mother $50,000 a term. She paid for one term and she couldn't send him for the next term. And that young man cried. That young man cried. And today, you can see in this budget, even though it has stress on some sector, that young man can now apply for GATE to achieve his dream of being a doctor with a single parent. And that is something that we must not take for granted. So we would have taken away $1 billion or more from the fuel subsidy and capped it at $1 billion. But there are so much of young people in this country who has the opportunity of a further education, has the opportunity to make themselves into whatever they want to make themselves into. And that is something we must not take for granted. So I'm actually putting blinkers, and I'm feeling a little bit emotional about it at this point in time, but I'm putting blinkers on it because see, education is extremely important. And I think the government's focus on education is going to give so many young people an opportunity to become what they want to be. And I think that is where our focus has to be. I mean, I too came from local government. I spent 12 years as a councillor. I became a councillor at 23 years old. And I moved from councillor, deputy mayor. I served as mayor in 2014. And I'm always with people. I still want to run around and play a little basketball when I have the time to. And I still want to meet with the youths and try to run with them. I get a little bit older, so I really can't do it as I would like to. But you know what? I have never seen in my 12 years as a local government representative, and now I have never seen so much focus on local government. If you go into the expenditure, you would see that local government was given a big pie. And all the people who in Warden Road and Fanny Village and Chatham and Fullerton, Miss Gay, if you're listening, Miss Gay says that she's my mother, adopted mother. Miss Gay, if you're listening, there's an opportunity for you to also have that problem sorted because the government will put things in place for that. And there's something in this budget for everyone. Yes, gas price would have increased a little bit, but we have an opportunity to really make a mark on the young people in this country.
There were several stories you saw first right here on Delving Deeper. Let's remind you of the top 5.
And very encouraged by the DPP's engagement to say to me, what are your problems? So we've had a very candid conversation, and two of the things that I know are being addressed, the staff shortage. I know that the Judicial and Legal Service Commission recently appointed 20 new lawyers to the DPP's office. So that's going to make a big difference. And there is a building that even before my time was allocated to the DPP where he can now move his entire staff across so that he will be better equipped to accommodate all of the staff and the different units within the DPP's office. So those are things that I know have happened, are in train, and certainly I am giving maximum priority to supporting the independence of the DPP and enabling him as best as I can bring resources to bear to get the job done, to bring home successful prosecutions.
When we asked UDCUT to examine and assess, let's say Hazel Crawford and Gene Pear Complex, one of the recommendations is that we need to break this thing down and start over from scratch.
Now, when you say break it down, you mean break down?
Tear it down.
Ooh,
because
okay.
It would cost us more to do the type of refurbishment that is needed to bring it to a world-class facility in this day and age. It would cost us more to refurbish than to break down and rebuild.
It has started, and I want to thank the police service for doing that. The community police are the ones that are responding in this school, and they are actually assigning the officers who are in charge of police youth clubs. So these officers are accustomed dealing with young people and accustomed, guiding them. And what they're attempting to do, in addition to patrolling the schools, is to encourage the young people to join their police youth clubs in their different areas so that they have an impact in the school as well as outside of the school. And we have been seeing a reduction in the violence. So I'm sure the country could notice there are not as many videos circulating. We had about 20 serious fights in the first week, 5 in the second week, and just 1 reported in terms of serious fights where there's videotaping and so on, just 1 reported for this week.
We have a very ambitious agenda of working through our overseas missions to ensure that public buildings in capitals and cities and towns right across the world are lit on this independence anniversary in the national colors of Trinidad and Tobago. We are working with our members of the diaspora to ensure that the red, white, and black are conveyed and uplifted and represented everywhere on this independence anniversary, because 60 years is a big milestone. And while we may be a young democracy relative to many other countries, we're a proud and significant part of the international community. And this 60th gives us a chance to celebrate ourselves and our nation.
Is it that you are religious? Is it that God really guides your...
I guess you have some news.
Wow.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, Honorable AG. Good evening, and thanks for being here.
I
This
got
is a
I got
surprise.
word that you were here, and I asked permission to intervene and to impose on you.
Thanks so much. I even want to go further, Honorable AG, to even suggest that we have the conversation a bit wider in Trinidad and Tobago so that not only persons in the fraternity, but generally speaking, that the public could be more aware of the benefits of mediation and perhaps to see what legislative and what policy decisions that we can make collectively to achieve that goal.
Bang on.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep in touch with you if you don't mind.
Yes, most definitely.
There's a card in here that I wrote to you, so I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to run away if you don't mind.
Thank you.
But congratulations again. You have a great future ahead of you. You belong to an honorable profession, and you have very high standards to set and an example for other persons like you when you were very young to follow.
Thank you so much, Honorable AG.
As we look to 2023, let's share this message from one of our guests.
I think we have a beautiful country that has a lot of challenges. I think that we need to sometimes look at our glass half full instead of constantly very often half empty. And I know it's a difficult time, but it's not a difficult time for Trinidad and Tobago. I think we have a lot to be thankful for in Trinidad and Tobago that we don't focus on a lot. And I think that young people need to be empowered because that's the only way we'll have a future in this country.
And that's our show for tonight. I'm Kimberly D'Souza. As we leave you, here's a quick look at what happens behind the scenes. From all of us, Happy New Year and good night.
3, 2, 1.
Join us at the same time next week for Paul Richards.
Bloopers.
No, tell me just how you want me to be, and I'll be that.
Yeah, whatever he says. Don't follow what he says, I'll get in trouble. Sayo left him in charge of man. I know what's going on.
I just want to break. I think there's a cricket on set.
Scratch that, talking.
Madam Producer, we good? So let me do my rap quickly because...
Quiet on set.